Welcome to ASHLEE Marie. I hope you guys enjoyed watching the finale of the Halloween Baking Championship last night. Yes, it's really sad. I got kicked out the first round, but you know what? It's totally my fault. I was thinking, mummy and inspired by rather than mummy and create. So today I'm recreating my crepe cake, but I'm doing it with a little bit of a twist that I think would have taken me to that final level. So I am making my mummy crepe cake, but cut out in the shape of mummies, with a shortbread cookie underneath, and rather than the buttermilk syrup being within every layer, I put it off to the side so it's interactive. First off, we want to start with the crepe batter. This is very similar to my regular crepe recipe. This one just happens to have cinnamon in it as well, going for that fall feel and taste. So everything's in here. We're going to blend it up and put it in the fridge. Now we're gonna make the pastry cream because that also needs to set up in the fridge, so we wanna get that going quickly as well. So I have some milk and some vanilla beans that I've scraped out that I have over here, and we're bringing those to a low simmer. Now I'm adding eggs and sugar, and I'm gonna mix that until it's pasty, a light yellow. And now we're gonna add the flour cornstarch mixture to the eggs and sugar. And I'm going to now introduce some of these warm liquids to my eggs, stirring because we don't want to cook the eggs. Ooh. But also don't spill all over the counter if you can help it. All right, so we want to introduce the hot liquid to the eggs called tempering, because when we add the eggs to this, we don't want the eggs to immediately scramble with a difference in temperature. So my eggs were already room temperature, and now they're nice and warm. It's more liquidy, much easier to pour. And we're gonna add this whole thing to our stovetop mixture. And immediately begin stirring, because the last thing we want is scrambled eggs. So you wanna constantly be scraping the bottom of this. You don't have to be fast. You just wanna make sure that you're always stirring. As you can see, this is thickened up beautifully. And now we're ready to strain it, because if there are any bits of egg, we don't want them in there. And of course, all those big chunks of vanilla beans and stuff, we don't want that in there either. So take your pan and with a fine mesh strainer over a bowl, just scrape it in. Make sure you get everything. This stuff is delicious and you do not want to waste it. And because it's so thick, it will need a little bit of help getting through the mesh strainer, but you don't want to work too hard at it because you don't want to push something down into there that may be like a scrambled egg piece if you have any. You don't want them to get pushed through. So, and now to help cool it down and make it creamy, we're going to add some butter. And just stir that until the butter's completely melted. The butter's all stirred in, the pastry cream is ready to go in the fridge. And what we want to do now is take some plastic wrap and press it right down on top of this, because we don't want it to develop a crust. Now this dessert needs a baked element. So I decided to make shortbread that I could crumble in between the layers and give it kind of a crunchy effect. So softened butter, and some brown sugar. Now you can use regular sugar. I just like the depth of flavor brown sugar gives shortbread. Once that's light and fluffy, then you add your flour, a little bit at a time. Turn out the dough. It's really crumbly, which is actually exactly how it's supposed to be. And now we're gonna knead it together. So in an attempt to make this dessert a little bit better than it was before, one of the things I'm gonna do is take those same cookie cutters I'm gonna cut the crepes out with, and also cut really thin shortbread to maybe be my bottom layer. So I'm gonna do 3 different shapes for the 3 judges. Make sure to prick them and bake. It's time to make the buttermilk syrup, and that's gonna be our blood. So I'm melting some butter. I'm gonna add some sugar to it and some corn syrup. Now we're gonna add some buttermilk. Now, if you don't have buttermilk, you can always make your own. In fact, I always make my own with a tablespoon of lemon juice at the bottom, and then I pour the milk up until it reaches a cup. It gets kind of a little bit thick, which is exactly how you want it. A little chunky looking sometimes, depending on how long you leave it. And homemade buttermilk. So we're gonna melt all this and bring it to a boil. Now we're gonna take it off the heat, and now is when the fun part comes in. Now the vanilla. See that reaction? That was nothing. The reason I'm using such a big pan for this smaller batch is this next reaction. We're gonna add baking soda. Wish me luck. I accidentally once used too small of a pan and it overflowed on me. Just keep stirring until it goes back down. Our shortbread cookies are done, sliced, and I'm gonna throw them in the food processor, and we're gonna make our crumbs. The crepes are all cooked and cooled. If you have any questions about that, I have another video showing all about how you can cook crepes without any fancy equipment. So I'm going to stack up a couple of these, matching the edges, or at least the thick part of the edges, as best that I can. Okay, let's see if we can do 4 at once. And now I'm gonna take my zombie mummy cookie cutters, and I'm going to cut out an entire stack. All right. Be careful, just because sometimes they might still be stuck. There we go, all right. Now, let's see, let's do one of the other ones. We have all the components. We have our shortbread cookie, we have our crepe mummies, we have our broken up shortbread, and our pastry cream. So now it's time to assemble it. I'm gonna use a piping bag just so that I can get it nice and thin without having to spread it. And then you do a layer of crepe, and you just repeat. About every other layer, take some of the crumble and spread it over the top. That's gonna give it a little bit of crunch as you eat it. Remember to go really thin. If you go too thick, you'll actually have problems with it staying together afterwards. It'll like fall over, and you don't want that. So we have our cookie and our pastry cream and our crumbs and our crepes all stacked up in our mini mummy crepe cake. And now I've taken some of the crepe scraps and I've layered them together, and I'm gonna cut it out in the same shape. And that's gonna be our very, very top layer, and then it's gonna look like all the mummy wrappings. So it's gonna give it that final mummy-esque look. So add one last layer of the pastry cream and put this on layer by layer. Start with the legs, add that next layer, adding more pastry cream if you need to. Let's see, put that there, and then one final layer. All right, our buttermilk syrup is done and it's time to turn it into blood. So add some red food gel. I use super red because it's a lot stronger. Remember, don't use the liquid gels. They don't do any good. You can of course use powder gel. They're nice and strong. All right, we have a nice, beautiful, very bright red, but you know, it's a little bit too red. So one of the things that you can do is add a little bit of brown to tone it down. If you don't have any brown, you can always add just a little bit of cocoa. Not enough to change the flavor of this syrup, but just enough to add a little bit of depth to it. And you can already see what a difference that made. It really was maybe half a teaspoon, and it makes quite a difference. So it's a great way to go. Let's add our buttermilk blood to our mummy cake. What do you guys think? Pretty gory? Kind of fun to have it so interactive, huh? It's all done. It's a bloody mess. It's definitely layered, not just inspired by mummy, but looks like a mummy. I'm really pleased with how this recreation turned out, and I hope the judges would have been too. Whew, anyway, the journey's over. It was a wonderful ride. I had a great time. I hope you guys subscribe and continue to enjoy all that I have going on. All right, let's give this a try. I'm going to get, his leg. I think it needs more bloody syrup. Anyway, thanks for watching.